I left I left the house without my keys this morning.
One of those days, huh?
Yep. I took the bus here. So when I got here, I had to call my wife so she could unlock the building. And then I had to find a key.
Can she do that remotely?
She can, yeah.
Yeah, it's some key card access.
A new building. And
They're redoing key card access here at the government center. I hope I'm not divulging any state secrets, but it's astonishing how many doorways there are. I get a daily report. We finished this floor, we're moving on to that floor. It's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of doors. They just have to manually replace a panel or do something. They have to go to every door and do it. It's astonishing.
okay.
Getting all your settings set properly.
Yeah, I am.
There we go.
Okay, there we are. Welcome back, Karen.
Thank you, Mike. How are you today?
I'm really good.
Good.
We've been on hiatus for a little while, so I'm very excited to be talking to you again. I missed
It's
you.
always great to talk to you.
We This is the Gray Paper Pod. Each week we answer the question, what was the most interesting legal research question of the week? And we probably have a few. The last couple of weeks have been quite the whirlwind, so excited to settle down here a little bit. I'm Mike Carlson. I'm the owner and founder of Gray Paper Legal.
And I'm Karen Westwood, director of the Hennepin County Law Library.
Karen, you've also been super busy the last couple of weeks. What was your most interesting legal research question this week?
Boy, Mike, I don't know that I have one, but what I've been thinking about is we months ago we arranged with the American Bar Association to host a display. And so we're just putting it up now. I want to promote it. It will be here in the law library until the third week in December. And it's an American Bar Association display called Lawyers Without Rights, Jewish Lawyers Under the Third Reich. And there's about four panels that sort of set the stage for what went on to gradually um, prevent lawyers from practicing their Jewish lawyers from practicing their profession in Germany during that time. And then there's a series of, I don't know, 24 panels. So scholars around the world have researched individual lawyers in Berlin at that time and what happened to them. And it's just, I think it's very moving. We don't have enough space to put up all of the panels. So we were saying the other day, it's like trying to choose your favorite child.
Oh yeah,
Each
wow.
of them is so interesting. I think what we'll do is we'll start rotating some of them out so that they're all displayed. We don't have room enough in the law library, so some are in the law library, some are out in the public hallway outside of the law library, and then I think we're going to put some in our conference room too. It just seems like a really important display, and unfortunately, seems to be even more important these days with what's going on
Yeah,
in Israel
it's
and
just
Gaza.
super interesting. I'd love to come down and see that. We were just talking about bar associations right before we hit the record button here, and it's just kind of interesting that they were different times in the early 40s, weren't they? The uh, when I was working at the Bar Association, I once grabbed in the stacks like the very first Bench and Bar magazine I could find,
Mhm.
which was from that time period, and
Yeah,
it's interesting to see how much language was similar even today. It was the early 40s, right before the war, talking about how, we've only got 60% of the lawyers who are members of the Bar Association,
Yeah.
and how much language was similar. I've always wondered about it, because you've heard about bar associations really being there to, how to put this, preserve the bar for white Anglo American.
Oh, right.
Right. It was for it was to keep Jews and minorities and other other folks out of the bar. I mean, that was the plan. And now the bar associations have, you have multiple bar associations, right? It's not like,
Right.
even now you have a bar association. There's Mabel, and there's
Right.
Asian Pacific
Minnesota women lawyers.
Americans.
And
Yeah.
yep.
Minnesota women lawyers. So it's still bifurcated, which is interesting. Interesting history for the profession,
Yeah.
so
And
curious to
that's,
know from that.
yeah. Well, definitely. I was reading some of the promotional materials around this display, and someone who was involved with it said, yeah, we've researched the Jewish lawyers all, during that time. What we don't have answers to is why didn't any of the non-Jewish lawyers stand up for them? They
Yeah.
just gradually chipped away at their rights. Any Jewish lawyer had to reapply to the bar to be readmitted at a certain point. And then they could only represent Jewish clients. And so it sounds like the Nazis were pretty thoughtful about how they were going to take away the whole people's rights. They didn't just go in and disbar all the attorneys. First, you could practice if you fought for Germany in World War I. Then you could practice if you were readmitted to the bar. Then you could practice if you only represented Jewish clients. And so it just chipped away until then you don't.
Yeah.
Then you don't know. And me, as an older person, I look at these banners and I calculate how old these lawyers were in 1933 or 35 when their rights were being taken away, and how they were at age 50, 60, 65, trying to make a decision. Do they leave Germany and try to restart somewhere else? And as you know, with law, you can't just restart. You have to take the bar and be admitted in whatever country you go to. So I think it's a very compelling exhibit. I really am interested. And then we'll have a couple of CLEs around it. I'll talk about that later. But yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Good.
That's great. Yeah, the CLEs should be super interesting. It's interesting because I don't think as an organized bar we talk about those kinds of issues. We were just talking about the community platform at the Minnesota State Bar Association, and how interesting and valuable that actually is for these really nitty gritty, run of the mill. Somebody will post a question there about the most arcane local issue, and somebody will answer. Many times I've thought, who's going to know that? And somebody does. But when it comes,
some weird deed,
But anytime that there's a conversation that's outside of that, people lose their minds, don't they? I mean, we were just talking about Mary Warner's posts about legal tech, and people like sort of gruffly saying, it's not really why I joined this community. It's like, all right, well, can you imagine what it would be like to talk about the history of the profession? Or I mean, we're not versed in that sort of civic dialogue, interestingly, even though we're attorneys, and you would think that'd be something we'd be good at. Yeah.
Well, I was talking with a colleague here and saying I do see the value in these very practical CLEs. They're very popular with our attorneys. But, you don't have to be an attorney to attend our CLEs. So I like to do these kind of bigger historical topics or things like that. And I said, because when you're an attorney, I think you do your work and you do it so well and you become so expert, often in a very narrow band of law. And I think if you do these bigger CLEs, you're just reminded why you became a lawyer. It's really important stuff, right? To promote the rule of law and democracy and all of that. It's not something to take lightly and just worry about filing the deed in the proper way or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there are a lot of assumptions baked into what we think what the practice of law is now, and that historical context is so important to challenge those assumptions.
Yeah.
If we can go on about what those assumptions are, but I think that maybe we should just encourage folks to attend your
Yes,
exhibit.
go attend all the
Who's the
CMEs.
curator on that? Who's making the call? Limited space means you've got to make some tough choices, which are important, right? Talk about context.
Well, yeah. No,
Who's
we
making those
stand
calls?
around and as librarians and say, oh, look, here's the first female lawyer in Prussia. Well, we better include her. And
Yeah,
then someone else will say, look, this guy ended up like running a coffee shop in Tel Aviv. This seems like a super interesting
yeah,
story. So I don't know. It's a bit random among the
yeah,
staff. And then we'll definitely cycle the rest of them out. We have about 8
yeah.
I saw that we didn't get up yet. So
These are librarian challenges that I fortunately don't have to deal
that's
with.
right.
It's very
It's tough.
interesting. I was going to ask you. I don't know if you had a chance to take a look. One of the interesting legal issues, legal research issues for me this week was Gene O'Grady's post about the. I have to remind myself that the name of the AI. Let's see here. What was the AI event that she was taking on? Gosh, I should have had this at my fingertips. Where did it go?
Yeah, Gene O'Grady. Once again, we must ask, what business are we in?
Yeah, I know. Gene O'Grady writes the Dewey B strategic.
Artificial intelligence and the future of law libraries.
Yeah, opportunity or Armageddon.
Yeah, well, nothing like a catchy headline to.
I know, right? But it's interesting. The librarians, so ILTA and the librarians have sort of gotten together and are having these regional meetings, which is, talk about a true librarian kind of event. You have to attend live. It's not being broadcast. There are rules about how you participate. They're regional meetings. So I think there's one taking place today in Chicago. I was kind of looking for the Midwest event. Unfortunately, that's today at 9 o'clock. So in an hour from now, it starts.
How are we going to hear what happens?
Yeah, but I wanted to get your take on. I mean, it's a logical discussion, I think, for this community for sure, right? I mean, huge impacts. But the agenda I thought was super interesting. We were talking about curatorial decisions with your exhibit. One of the considerations on the agenda was the impact on not only collections but space.
Yes. Oh,
so, yeah. I've been to law libraries at law firms across the country. Inevitably they'll tell, oh yeah, it used to be this whole floor, right? Or
exactly.
It used to be,
yep.
We used to have a room. Now we just have this, now we have a resource person.
Right.
We don't have stacks any longer.
Yep.
What does that mean to be thinking about space in the terms of AI at a law library?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's like, do we need a space anymore? I know a lot of law firm librarians are working from home still since the pandemic, and I'm not sure. They must have physical items that they can't get online, but they must be so few that they can just call whoever's in the office and get them to pull it and make a scan or something from it. But for sure, the Hennepin County Law Library used to take up the entire 24th floor of the Government Center Courts Tower. Now we're probably 45%. And even then, I have a whole wall of reporters that every year I look at them and I think, should I still be getting
Oh,
these?
really?
Should I stop getting them, but leave them as wallpaper?
Yeah.
And kind of to this, I mean, maybe it's a side tangent here, but I just had a second-year law student come in this week with her friend. And I said, what can I help you with? She said, I just need some pictures. So she went and stood in front of the wall of reporters. And then she pulled a volume out and stood in front of the windows and had her picture taken. And I just laughed at 2L. I bet she's never read a case in paper. Right?
Yeah,
but we still want some kind of imprimatur of of the law, and apparently a wall of reporters did it for her. But yeah, so I think really in our space that we have left, I don't know, probably a third of it. Well, more than half of it we have online as well. And so in theory, we could get rid of probably another half of our space. Not quite
Oh,
that,
really? I was going to ask.
because
Yeah.
we have access to it online. The thing with online access is you never know if you're always going to have it. Once you buy a book, it's yours. So yeah.
Yeah.
But so yeah, AI definitely has an impact on space, because a lot of the titles that law libraries have are finding titles. They're aids to locate other information. And in theory, AI should obviate the need for those.
Yeah. I mean, with respect to like, we've talked, I guess, about the need for secondary source materials ever again if the AI is able to generate the summaries that we typically use those secondary sources for.
Yeah,
That would certainly impact collections, and as a result, space. I
for
imagine
sure. Yep.
is how we think about it.
Yep.
I could sort of wonder on a broader scale, it is things like advocacy. I remember Bill Patry, who wrote his copyright treatise, used to complain that that courts would cite NIMR, right, his competitor,
Oh, right.
NIMR on copyright,
Yeah.
as authority. so
Right.
so the only authority was some thinker on who was arguably supposed to be summarizing the law rather than creating it. But
Right. Right.
but I do wonder about sort of running out of ideas, at least in the law. If we don't have these secondary source materials and sort of creative thinking, what do the LLMs rely on, in 10, 15, 50
Yeah.
years? Is it just data? Are we just living in a world of data, or
Yeah.
I don't
I mean,
know.
what we've always liked about secondary sources is someone has made the evaluation of which are the most important cases in that area, and then we'll summarize them for us. It's unclear to me whether AI can really do that. I can pull up Chevron and say, summarize the holdings of this case and tell me why it's important, and it probably will do a great job. But if I'm just idly wondering about a general topic, is AI going to be able to sift through and figure out the most important case, or the one most closely aligned with my fact situation, and then summarize it? Like, who's doing the heavy lifting up front to decide what should be summarized?
Yeah, right. And the folks who are asking those very nitty-gritty questions, like in the State Bar Association community platforms, in those online forums,
Right.
how do those get elevated to the point where that kind of information is available and accessible? Right now, you go to the communities for that kind of information. I mean,
Right.
there are a lot of questions that I would not ask an AI, just because I don't believe there's any materials been trained on to answer that question.
Right. Right. Exactly. If there are no materials that it's been trained on, what's it going to say? I mean, I think about that these days with the state of Minnesota just made massive legislative changes in all kinds of areas of the law. So if AI is trained primarily on case law, we're not going to get much good information on what's up with the new eviction statutes in Minnesota, or the
Yeah.
new cannabis legislation, and how do we get our arms around that?
Yeah, but at least that's available data. I sort of
Exactly. That's
feel
true.
like that is digitized even, and
Yeah.
available for training in a RAG system, or whatever, or whatever it might be. But it's that the boots on the ground, is that those intellectual leaps of, this doesn't make any sense, or
Right.
we need more people, because not everything has been converted to text in a
Right.
way that the practice still requires space. I
Right.
guess it requires the boots on the ground in many respects. But
And also, I wonder then about the ability of folks who grow up with AI queries. Uh, how do you really get the ability to read case after case after case and figure out how to understand it if AI is doing that piece for you? You know, they say that
yeah,
like what's important now
I
is the
know.
evaluative place after you get the results. And so I have every confidence in current attorneys. But if you come up trained on that, then how do you develop those skills to evaluate your results? I mean, there must be a way. We've done it with all kinds of things, but we ought to be aware of it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Our skill sets are going to adopt and change. I
Yeah.
think, for sure. My most interesting legal research project is I just got I upgraded to Westlaw Precision finally.
Yeah. Super. Are
I
you loving it?
I am loving it so far. I was excited to grab it, and as a result of my upgrade, I was selected. I I like to think to have early access to the AI tool. They have
Oh,
a tool
fun.
called AI Assist,
Yep.
which works pretty well. As you know, I've been working on a number of these for folks, just as just testing some of these models from other services that are training their models, and my job has been recently to do it the old-fashioned way and test it against the AI. And I
Right.
have to say, I think the Westlaw product works really, really well. It's not the new Casetext Co-Counsel; that's still a separate
Oh, that's
product.
still separate. Okay.
Yeah, but so it's their AI, though I imagine it's going to be more and more integrated over time. But it works
Yeah.
really well. So far, I've just been using it in unexpected ways. I sometimes I'll log into this product called LawClerk.legal for a quick buck, right? LawClerk.legal is a freelancer website for attorneys, and if I've got a free weekend or if I've got a couple of hours open in the afternoon, I'll say, hey, it'll be a posting there for $250 or $350, or sometimes as low as like $55. I just
Yeah.
need this quick thing. Can you get it done? So I like to think of it as beer money.
Sure.
It's but sometimes you get stuck with those. There's like, oh yeah, I'll do that, and then it's like, oh, I of course, they're applying the wrong legal theory. So I do the work, and then I get 90% of the way done. I'm like, wait a minute, I'm pretty sure this attorney is asking the wrong question. So I
Right.
reply. So I have to do the work all over again for the same flat rate.
Same.
Um,
Yeah.
and so I've been very careful about vetting those projects, especially if it's a lower cost one. I don't want
Right.
to just grab something that I think is going to take me an hour and ends up taking me,
Yeah.
a full day. That's
Right.
killer. That's just killer. And so I've been using the AI just to make sure that I understand the issue and that I'm not making an
Yeah.
assumption about the post.
Yep.
There was one, for example, I looked at it and it was really low cost. It was just a response to an office action, a trademark issue, and I looked at him like, I think that's complicated. I think that's essentially an appeal. And I'm like, so I threw it into the AI and it outlined the process of the steps that would have to take place afterward. I'm like, yeah, this is like days of work. This is
Yeah.
not an afternoon, just to make
Yeah.
sure, right? So I skipped that one. So it
Yeah.
has been working really, really well to vet
As a
these
vetting tool is
postings, which is
interesting.
primarily
Yeah.
what I've been using it for so far.
Yeah.
Most of the other legal research, I'll throw it in there and use it like I use other natural language searches. I'll just use it as a starting point. But
Sure.
it was interesting. I didn't expect that. That's how I've been using it so far in these early days. So that was
That's
my
great.
fun piece of.
That's great. It'll be fun to see how that develops, how you continue to use it and what you find it best at. And if you have to change your queries, right? This whole idea of a prompt engineer, that maybe the way you craft a natural language search isn't really a good way to ask AI. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, for sure. There are some prompt guides on the platform.
Oh, yeah, good.
It's
Yeah.
been a long time since I had to look up a key site flag too, which is kind of funny. Yeah, they've got
Uh-huh.
new key site flags on the new system. I'm not sure. What's nice is it's easier to get to the information that you need, right? I mean, Westlaw, you get a red flag, which stands for the proposition that at least one point of law within this case has been,
Has received
changed.
negative treatment, or
You get
yeah.
some negative treatment for that one point of law, and Westlaw Precision now has a striped red flag, so it's white and red. I'm like, wait a minute,
Mhm.
what is that?
Yeah, I can't remember. And doesn't it have a striped blue and white flag now too?
Yeah, a striped blue and white flag is to alert you to the fact that, and it's only in the district courts, right? So if you've got a district court, I think it's only in federal cases. If it's been
Mhm.
appealed, then you've got a blue and white flag to let you know that this case
Oh, is on
has
appeal.
been appealed, which is
Oh,
great.
yeah,
That works with the federal cases because they've got all the federal dockets, so you can
right.
see that the subject of that case may be changing. But the red and white just is to alert you that it is just one of the issues in the case. It's just one of the head notes, right? So when you click on it, you're taken to that point of law which has been
That
amended,
point of law, yeah.
which is, saves me, maybe 3 minutes, but I love it, right? I
Yeah,
mean, because it's like, wait a minute, it's got a red flag. I got to look at it and find out whether or not
right,
I can just say, don't worry about the red flag.
right.
Always have
Doesn't
to say,
affect us.
yes,
Yeah,
I see that it's got negative history, but we don't care about that. Which
right,
I've done. Oftentimes I'll ignore that depending on the client. I'll just cite it and trust them to know that
right.
that's how the law works.
Yeah,
But oftentimes I'll get a response that says, "Hey, this has got a ton of negative
it's a
treatment."
red flag,
I'm like,
yeah,
yes, but not for that point of law, and it's
right.
still good for that point of law.
Yeah,
So, but now that red flag shaves off that 3 minutes. So
right.
that's how these little itty bitty efficiencies that
Yeah.
I'm gaining from uh, precision so far.
And I think about that. It shaves off 3 minutes in actually finding it, but it sort of saves your brain all that extra work of reading, and then maybe you get distracted, or it makes you think about something else, and it instead of that, you just shoot, can go
Yeah,
right to the point of law. So
yeah, that's a good point. I'm probably generously calling it 3 minutes.
um,
When what do they say? If you're interrupted, if somebody walks in your door, it takes you at least 15 minutes to get
right, to
reoriented.
get back,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Get in the
So there's
flow.
probably unaccounted for inefficiencies and
Yeah,
that I'm not thinking of, getting distracted and whatnot. So
yeah. And you were going to tell a story of meeting a famous legal
oh yes,
personage.
yeah. It was I did not know Monica Bay well at all. I mean, I met her only once, but it was memorable. I know a lot of people. I didn't join in all of the conversation around that just because I didn't want to invade people who had personal feelings. But but I have always told this story about why I left Thomson Reuters, and it was because of Monica Bay.
No kidding.
and I was like at a table with her for just a few minutes during a meeting at a AAL conference. It was at AAL
Oh,
actually.
excellent. Yep.
They had the ALM breakfast where they talked about their survey, and I can't remember, but I was very excited to go because as a reference attorney, I don't work for corporate communications. I'm not in marketing. I'm a lawyer and on the phones with Westlaw users, and I'm not authorized to speak on behalf of Thomson Reuters. So that if any of my higher ups knew I was sitting down at a table with journalists, they would have lost their minds probably,
Yeah.
right? So, but
Especially
I
if you
wanted
wore a
to.
Thomson Reuters tag.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. When I sat down at the table, I'm like, we were all doing introductions, and there are a lot of big law firm attorneys there. I'm like, I'm a reference attorney for Thomson Reuters. They were like, oh, I mean, I literally, people are like, oh, welcome. I'm like, yeah, that was like a highlight of my career, right? I'm like, really? That's how you feel about So I was totally thrilled to be there, but well, Monica Bay was at that table, and the news was the survey data had something to do with people who had dropped one of the major services. So if they've decided to go with only Lexis or only Westlaw, how many of those firms stuck with Westlaw or Lexis, or Bloomberg was around at that time as well. And it used to be only Westlaw, and then fewer people were sticking with Lexis. And then it was starting to even out. And at that ALM breakfast, they were pleased to announce that Lexis had overtaken Westlaw as the preferred provider. And I just kind of caught Monica Bay out of the corner of my eye. Just her eyes were. It's like, oh, you're celebrating your wonderfulness as a reference attorney at this table. And I could just, her eyes were just burning into the side of my face. And, and it was just, I mean, she was staring me down. It was hilarious. And I couldn't say anything, right? I mean, I'm not gonna, I can't, I'm totally not authorized to speak with Monica Bay, who is the editor of Legal Tech News, and long history of but at that moment I said, this is, I mean, it wasn't embarrassing. I mean, it was good-hearted, and I really enjoyed the whole thing. And but I thought I just I want to be a part of that conversation. I don't want to be stuck like that ever. Even if I'm flippant or snarky, or if I have nothing great to offer, I don't have to avoid it, right? I just want to be able freely to have those conversations. So that was the moment I'm like, yeah, this is not the future of Mike in this profession. I'm gonna move on to something else. So
that's so interesting. She didn't say anything to you. She just looked at you.
Oh yeah. All she did was burn her eyeballs into my face. What are you going to say now, big guy? I can't. It was horrible. But I mean, you never know the impact you have on somebody, and I just, people wanting to tell their stories about Monica Bay, and that was like, yeah, she I mean, a huge influence on my life, and I didn't know her at all. I mean, I didn't tear up at their passing or anything like that, but it was huge. Yeah, huge moment in my life, and just one of those casual interactions which really shifted
big impact.
Super.
That's great.
Man, so sad to see her go, though. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Karen, thank you so much for joining us this morning. You always tell me you have nothing interesting going on upcoming in the next week, but you always have something amazing. So I'm going to ask you. Anyway. What's your most interesting thing coming up this week?
Coming up is I'm actually going out of town next week. I'm visiting a brother-in-law in Connecticut, but it happens to be close enough to New York City. So on a true busman's holiday, I'm going to take the train into New York next Thursday. And I'm going to visit the director of the law library at New York Law School, and then the director of the law library at Columbia. And sandwiched in between meeting with those folks, I plan to tour the New York Public Library in what is something of a pilgrimage for us librarians.
I've
never been to the main library with the lions. So that's my excitement.
Super exciting, yeah. That is exciting. What are you hoping to? I'm excited to hear about it, I should say. Yeah, hear what you learn. Anything specific on the you're hoping to learn from your either the law librarian colleagues or the New York? Just to be in the space, I imagine, would be exciting. I mean,
I'm just kind of wide open. I always want to know what other people are thinking about, like what drives their leadership and their interest. The one director is a bit older than me and thinking about retirement. And so, I mean, she'll just be great for reminiscing about how things have changed and where she thinks going. And then the other director is younger and just making a name for himself at Columbia. So that'll be It's going to be great.
Oh, interesting. Oh,
Yep.
yeah. Well, you're going to have to come back and report on all of that. I'm
I
super
will.
excited
I'll
to
take a
learn.
picture of me with a lion. How about you next week, Mike? You probably have something more work oriented.
Oh, and we've been working hard. My partner and I have been working hard on some new products which we're going to launch this week. So I don't want to be salesy about it. So and I'm not sure that the law librarians need to know all about it, but super excited to launch it. We have a new customer portal that was 10 times harder to build than we thought it was going to be. But we're wrapping that up this week, and we're going to launch it this week. So
Oh, that's great.
yeah, very very excited to do that. Essentially, we're just letting our customers order legal research from us just online through a customer portal, and we built some other tools
Well,
as a
anything
part of
that
that
gives you
portal.
more time to do the research and less time
Yeah,
futzing with
yeah,
your system
exactly.
is good,
Yeah,
right?
streamline the process a little bit for our folks, and
Yeah. And you're
so
launching that this next week?
that's next week. Yes,
Oh,
yes.
great.
And we've got given some of our clients some early access, the ones we trust. So if I typo my email address in the platform, for example, I'll get a kind note. Hey, I did find a
Hey,
typo.
that doesn't
Yeah,
look right.
of course you did. That's interesting on the technical side when you're building things like that, how easy it is. It's not a document, right? Uh, when you're building something, it takes another part of your brain to create the
Yeah,
structure than it does to draft the to draft the appearance, to look at the UI of the product is a whole nother skill set.
yeah, yeah. Oh, interesting. Well, that'll be good. Good for your clients, good for you. Sounds like a win-win from here.
Yeah, it is. It is. Karen, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mike.
Safe travels,
Thank
and
you.
yeah, you're gonna tell us all about it when you get back. I'm super excited. You're gonna take pictures?
I will
Okay.
promise. I'll try. I'll promise that because I don't often take pictures. But if I've promised you, maybe I actually will.
Absolutely. Some selfies with you and the librarians, and then
I know. Wouldn't that be
I'll,
great? All
I'll
right.
know you were there.
We'll geek out completely. All
Absolutely.
right.
Thanks,
Great. Have a
Karen.
great weekend and a good week.
You too. Take care.
So long.